Happy Friday morning, everybody, and welcome into our latest TDR Trade to Black podcast. I am your host, Shaddales. If you're watching for the first time, we cover the cannabis space, stocks, business side, latest trends from Washington, everything that you need to know about the cannabis space. As well, we also talk about a number of other things. And what is that? Well, let's dive into today's podcast and welcome in Anthony Varell, our co-host. I don't know what that intro was, but I just tried something different. And I was like,
ad-libbing off the top.
Like, what am I saying? But good to see you. How's your week been?
It's good. We got a cold front in Florida right now. It's 78 degrees.
78.
It's it's fantastic.
Is that near Smoke Rise, Alabama?
No. I guess we can get into that. We can get into that as we go on, but no, it's in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's nice and cloudy and 78 degrees. No humidity, which feels nice.
Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Snoop Dogg. Man, that guy is living the best life, isn't he?
Yeah.
We'll get into that a little bit later, but he was on the
Everyone loves Uncle Snoop.
Oh, doesn't he? Carefree, man. Doesn't take life too serious. But he's a good businessman, that's for sure. He was great during the Olympics. The clips with him with Kevin Hart doing the ad-libbing with the animals and documentary. He just does everything. But anyways,
the best thing was seeing him and Martha Stewart decked out at the equestrian event.
Wasn't that great?
In full equestrian getup, just being wheeled around on the golf cart.
What a pair! Remember when we were with Bruce Linton in the summertime, and he was talking about when Martha came up to his facility, said smartest person he's ever come across. She took a tour of the facility and was already talking about retrofitting and changing things. And one smart cookie to say the least. But that'd be a cool experience to be around somebody like that and just learn from things, right?
I'm a big Martha Stewart fan. She did some time in jail. She got popped for insider trading. She can make a hell of a meal. It's I'm a big Martha fan.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are, but yeah, those two have been incredible. It's Friday. Let's bring in Guap. Guap, happy Friday. Good to see you, my friend. How are things?
Things are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
excited. My favorite Snoop answer moment was they asked him if he had ever been around sort of like if bullets were flying. He said, "Oh yeah, every time." And he's like, "Well, yeah, you've never gotten shot." And he said, "Oh man, I just slip and slide." He's just got really good sound bites sometimes, I gotta say.
He goes with the flow, right? And let's face it, if you can freestyle at any given moment, just imagine what gets thrown your way and how he can just pivot immediately. Wasn't there a great there was something about North Carolina as well. There was a town, I think, on that weather map.
Yeah, we'll get into it. I'm very familiar with that town. It's High Point, North Carolina. It used to be a furniture capital here. But yeah, obviously, but you're stealing the thunder from story number 2.
Yes. Well, as I said off the top, this is the TDR Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shaddales. Guap's on with us here on a Friday, along with Anthony Varell, who is a big-time cannabis investor and has been involved in the space for quite some time. Just giving some new audiences kind of an idea of who we are and what we do as we cover the business side of cannabis, both private and publicly. So let's begin. And I want to begin actually, no company news, but an interesting tweet that you put out yesterday that got a lot of reaction, where you said hemp is the future of the cannabis industry. Hotly contested topic, to say the least, over these last few months. You maybe want to elaborate on what you meant by that, because I think a lot of people were curious to see your point and what you were trying to make.
Yeah, I mean, the federal legal framework that the hemp industry is operating under right now is the future of the cannabis industry. That is what legalization is going to look like. D2C, C-store, big box, finding its way into grocery. I think the one thing that hasn't been yet determined will be the bifurcation between low dose and high dose products, much like what you see with liquor. You see beer and wine in grocery, in C-store, more accessible. And then you see higher dose stuff relegated to liquor stores, which would possibly be that dispensary model. I don't think the dispensary model ever goes anywhere, but I do think that the future of the cannabis industry is what you're seeing the hemp industry operate under as it stands today. Obviously, there's some opacity there, as we don't really know what the hemp industry could look like 9 to 12 months from now. If the loophole gets amended, if there is anything onerous that comes down, or if it just stays status quo and they're allowed to operate the way that they're operating right now. But the way that the hemp industry operates today is the future of how the cannabis industry will operate at some point in time moving forward.
You bring up a good point about dispensaries. We should have had, or we should reach out to Anthony Cogniglio to talk more about this. But yeah, you make some valid points up. Like, what does happen to a lot of these dispensaries if that's the case and that's the availability to become? But do you see any notable changes? And if so, what does that look like?
I don't think they go anywhere. I don't think they go anywhere at all. They might become a little bit less utilized as far as the utilization rate goes, but I don't really see them starting to sell flower in Publix.
No.
I don't think that they're going to start selling flower anytime soon at Total Wine. Could there be a continuity in the trend of low dose beverages and low dose edibles available at C-store, big box, and let's say liquor stores? With then you need to go to a dispensary to get your traditional cannabis products. Could be something to that tune, but I really don't think that there's going to become a day where you go get your true leaf flower behind the counter at Publix. I just really don't see that happening. So I think there's always going to be a place for cannabis dispensaries.
What's the stat show again, as far as flower sales in comparison to everything else? What's the market share that they have for the overall total addressable market in cannabis? Like, it's still
Flowers
drastically,
well over 50%.
yeah. You
It's
agree with that? You agree with that, Guap?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with, when I saw the tweet from Anthony, I wanted to ask him about it pre-show. It was like the first thing I asked him. Well, hemp is the future of cannabis industry. Whoa, Anthony, so he meant more the framework. We've said it on the show before. It gives a nice preview. They're enjoying interstate commerce right now. They're enjoying no 280E right now. They're enjoying the use of credit cards.
Yeah.
This is a wish list for the regulated cannabis industry, predicting like how this is all going to play out with farm bills and bans, and it's really hard to figure all of that out. But it's exciting in the sense that it offers a preview, a glimpse of what it could be.
Yeah, I forget the interview that we did last week. It kind of opened up my eyes, but you're right. You made some great points, Anthony, that sometimes if you're a new shopper, and then like I've said before, where people are like being drug tested for, the current employer that they work for, it's like they want to steer clear of some dispensaries, especially if there's 30 or 40 cameras set up around the place. But if you could actually go to a brick and mortar store, get your hemp derived beverage, it's just a lot more welcoming towards those sorts of things. And you are a firm believer that, and it makes sense, that edibles and whatnot being available at some of those places will really expand the overall industry and the overall stigma as well, right?
Yeah, it's already expanding. It's already expanding the overall industry. I mean, I know obviously this is anecdotal, but I mean, I know people in my first connections on a daily basis that were not canna consumers.
Yeah.
What did they go to? Edibles and beverages.
Yeah.
And they had no problem trying them. There was no stigma around it. There was no like taboo around it. It's a safe, not tested, but it's a safe, portioned format. It's very easy to go into an experience where it's okay, there's 5 milligrams of THC. I know what the ceiling is on this experience. It's not going to be some crazy down the rabbit hole experience. I've been with people before that are like first time smokers. They'll take a bong rip and they'll sit there in a catatonic state for an hour and get super anxious and just won't be able to function. It's not a condemnation of the product or the way that it's consumed, but it's not, you can't really session or portion smokable flower. It's very hard, with the exception of maybe taking like a baby puff of a joint, and even so, then you don't really know what you're consuming from a portion standpoint.
Agreed.
Edibles and beverages are just easy.
Yeah,
like you could take a 2.5 milligram beverage. It's not going to do anything seriously adverse to you.
Yeah,
great example. So didn't you say there was a kiosk set up at the Panthers playoff run last year?
Yeah, 5 milligram hemp derived THC beverages.
Yeah,
I totally agree with Anthony, because in just anecdotally getting canna curious people to try cannabis for the first time, I had a really easy time on 4 for 4 with some of the can trips that I bought. you know, and these are people that I've been trying to get to take a puff for years. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's easy. And I agree. So, you know, first time consumer, also availability, but also just the whole like experience you were talking about of someone having anxiety. Like if they know what they're getting into and they're seeing a finished packaged good, there's also sort of the mental sort of prepare, you know, you're prepared. And most of the time the reaction to having a 5, even 10 milligram dose in a beverage or edible for a first time consumer, usually they're telling me, is that it? You know, because their expectations have been built up so high. And it's a lot different, you know, when you're buying something that's in a packaged good versus a bag off some friend of mine. You know, it's a different, you're going in with a different sort of mindset.
Yeah.
As well.
So
It's helpful.
fast forward 10 years from now, do edibles and beverages pretty much have the bulk of sales in this space? I know that's a long ways away, but is that where we're headed?
So I think they have the bulk of the mainstream sales that you see at C-store, big box, online, etc. But flower is never going to get phased out. People like smoking marijuana. People
100%.
enjoy smoking marijuana, and I don't think the new consumers are going to start to tip the scales that heavily that you start to see those dominate flower sales from, let's say, a majority standpoint as
Right.
far as the industry goes. Flower's not going anywhere.
No, I see that. Like in
Right.
alcohol, there's, you know, seltzers, there's whiskey drinkers, you know, that type of
But
thing.
again, if you want to talk about mass adoption and you want to take it a step further
Yeah.
and talk about public consumption in bars, movie theaters, sporting events, etc., that's eventually going to be a cantrip keg, or that's eventually going to be a cantrip or a can refrigerator that's in the venue. Those venues are never going to sell flower. They're never going to sell vapes. They will sell fast acting edibles and beverages. That's for certain.
So if you're having a can trip, do you think it can get you all excited to the point where you do a keg stand? Are we still going to see that, or is the keg stand going to be gone in 10 years from now? What is the answer to that, gents?
I hope it's already gone, but you know, binge drinking is way down.
Come on, man. That was the
And
greatest scene in old school. Anyways,
in terms of percentages and where it all ends up, like flower is king right now. Anyone who's banking on flower being king forever, I feel like is not looking around the bend quite far enough. But yeah, it's I think it's going to be a healthy percentage of the whole pie chart for a long time. And that's not to say that I think there's a lot of gains to be made in the other form factors, though.
Tons.
I never would have guessed, for example, that pre rolls would be such a huge percentage. It's a sort of like
Oh,
how, you know, like roll your own, right? But the
I can't
convenience
roll.
of
I can't
everything.
roll a joint. I
Oh,
still
come
can't
on,
roll a
Anthony.
joint.
I'll show you that the
No,
next time we hang
but for me, pre
out.
rolls. I don't buy pre rolls because I don't trust the quality of flour that's in there.
Yes.
I get the raw cones, and I'll
Yeah.
grind up flour and pack
There
it
you go.
myself. But like rolling joints, no. But I mean, also just thinking about it a little bit deeper, like I thoroughly enjoy smoking cannabis. I like the act of doing it. I like the way it tastes. However, from an experience standpoint, I prefer the experience of an edible or a beverage.
really?
Yeah, because you can't get too high in the experience, and you know what's going to happen. I know that if I eat one of these 5 milligram edibles, I know exactly what I'm going to feel like every single time.
We talked.
Smoking sometimes
It's
take too big of a rip, sometimes take too many. The experience can be completely different. Time and time again when you're consuming or combusting flower.
Well, that's a good thing though, as far as the edible side that you said, because we
That's
talked
Great.
about this 48 hours ago, which is the consistency. And if you can actually have consistency and trust, then that's going to obviously start to spread across a mainstream audience with a brand new audience. But
Yeah.
that's the
yeah.
evolution of an industry. One
Anthony and
thing's for
I.
sure, this is a hot
Yes, sir.
topic right now. Lots of comments. Mr. Vickers writes, "I miss rolling joints." Pat Schwartz writes, "As long as there's colleges, there will be keg stands." Yes, there will be. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Go
Anthony and
ahead,
I have
Bob.
talked about this both on air and off. And anytime we talk about form factors and actually the act of consuming cannabis, we get a ton of comments because we got a lot of heads out there who like talking about this stuff. But yeah, we've talked about it. You know, when your medical card, you know, you're no longer had your prescription, you leaned into the hemp derived space, and you realized just, you know, the consistency of having a 10, you know, if you're using cannabis, I'm not saying this is why you're doing it, but if you're using cannabis to calm down,
Yeah.
you know, I would push any of my friends to try an edible or you know, a beverage versus smoking some flower, because it tends to hit you in the head. It tends to cause the heartbeat to quicken. You know, all the reasons I may like it at a party may be all the reasons you don't like it if you're trying to settle down at 9 p.m. at night and get some sleep. So, but we're about to talk about some pretty cool formulated products from Ascend. So that's a
Well,
good
look
transition.
at that, Mr. Media Guy. Just
Yeah, look,
segueing right into it. I guess that kiboshes this topic, but I wanted to keep rolling with it.
No,
We
let's
got a
keep
lot of
going.
great comments, but I think we've pretty much. But yeah, smash that like button, people. Love the comments. Keep them flowing in. We'll circle back to this topic. Just leave lots of comments, and I'll address them towards the end of the podcast. But this has been great. Let's jump into the wire involving multi-state operator, like you said, Guap, and Ascend Wellness, who launched a new edible brand called Effin. That's a catchy name, to say the least. Otherwise, they're launched, what was it, 4 SKUs, edibles and cannabinoids. This is a popular topic last week during the Benzenga conference. Here's another example as to why it's becoming more and more of a priority and game plan for companies like Ascend, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was an interesting release. I mean, I thought the brand was a little effing weird at first glance, just the name and overall like semantics of it. But I mean, they're following the trend. I mean, consumers want edibles that are experience based, that have minor cannabinoids that are augmenting that experience. CBN, CBG, THCV. Those are the 3 most popular minor cannabinoids. Those are the 3 most popular minor cannabinoids that we've seen consumers purchasing. For things like sleep, balance, and then let's say an uplifting experience when you factor in THCV. So, I mean, this is good. I'm sure these will sell well. Juana's done this for a long time. Grun, that we've had on Wednesday with Christine, she's championed this for a very long time with her edibles, mixing in CBG, CBN, and THCV into their pearls. This is very on trend. And I mean, I think this is a smart, I don't want to call it a pivot, but a smart launch for Ascend to bring these products forward, because this is, I think, where the category is going or it's where the category has been with experience-based edibles.
So with consumers and this growing more and more and more, you talked about an uplifting experience with THCV. So again, I'm trying to target the existing audience that watches our show every day, but for anybody new, when you have, let's say, a high level of THC, a common thing is that people get anxiety and they start to get a little worried when they smoke that kind of flower. But when you're taking an edible with the THCV, maybe like Guap or Anthony, you guys can jump in at any given time. Talk about what the difference is and how you're feeling towards that. We're not condoning basically anybody to throw out and try this sort of thing, but just understanding what the outcome is and the difference between the two.
Yeah.
So THCV, it's supposed to minorly curb like the munchies. Anecdotally, I don't really experience that whenever I eat any or whenever I've taken any of the products. As far as THCV goes, the best one that I've tried was the Juana beverage. The the regular lemonade has THCV, CBD, and THC. The strawberry lemonade has CBG, THC, and CBD. And I do notice a difference with the THCV beverage, that it's more of kind of like an uplifting, like heady, energetic high. And then as far as the edibles go, any of the ones with CBG in them, as far as balance goes, with a 1-to-1 with THC, I've found that I like better than, let's just say, like a straight THC edible.
Do you find the same, Guap?
No, I just love these product names, right? So I wanted to spotlight them. One's called Chillin', another one's called Sleep. So you know what that one's supposed to do: hang and do it. These are all sort of like outcome based. And I've been a big supporter of this. type of, wanting to see more formulated products that are targeting a specific effect. I think part of it is like the marketing gets in your head. And so if it tells you you're supposed to sleep, maybe you just sort of naturally calm down a little bit. There's a bit of a placebo effect going on. But
Yeah.
these cannabinoids, definitely, beyond THC, like I've done a lot of reading and talked about THCV a lot on the show. There's very limited studies on this stuff. This is part of the reason that we want to see more research done on THCV. If there's something that can give you energy and suppress appetite, there might be a market for that, like nationally. So I'm just happy to see these types of products coming out. And I'm very interested to see if people, if they're keeping some data on whether or not people actually get or achieve the intended effect. But yeah, this is great to see, and I think is another step in the right direction in terms of getting a curious consumer to try it for the first time. Because like Christine was saying from Groon, she has a lot. They're starting to see more and more people coming in looking for, I just need to sleep better. And they don't really, it's not like they've done hours of research on CBN. They're just looking for a product that says sleep on it, that has been designed to help people sleep. And then when it helps them sleep, they become the biggest advocates of your brand and that product ever. They're telling everyone. And a lot of other people who have never tried cannabis before. So for me, it's a step in the right direction. I'm happy to see these types of products coming out, and I think we're going to see a lot more.
Sounds like I got my evergreen video for next week. The difference between THC and THCV. Leave some comments below. Anything?
Well,
go ahead.
The big difference is THCV is a minor cannabinoid. The concentration you're never going to see like what you see THC percentage wise in flower or in any of the product, or actually in the product. Sometimes it is 1-to-1.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And not psychoactive, right?
Yeah, leave some comments below. Let us know if there's any evergreen videos that you guys want to know and learn of. We'll get those out next week, but some great examples here. 30012 writes, Effin like Effin vodka. Bingo. There you go. I forgot there is Effin vodka.
There is actually. Yeah, I forgot about that too.
Hey, like it or don't like it, it stands out. And that's all part of this industry right now. It's just getting your name out there and understanding who you are and what you represent. Let's now move into topic number 2 involving Snoop Dogg, who was incredible yesterday on arguably probably the most historic morning show ever in American history, like the Today Show, which has been around for, I don't know, half a century. But this was incredible. If you haven't seen it, get a chance to go onto YouTube as well and check out. He came on as a meteorologist and basically talked about the forecast. And when showing up, there's all these towns that were like outlined, like Pottsville, Pennsylvania, Smoke Rise, Alabama, Mary Jane Falls, Nevada, and typical Snoop, just totally freestyles any situation that he's in and just runs with it. But I just look at this and I'm just like, wow, like it is crazy. Just another example as to how Washington is completely disconnected with the everyday people. This is a morning show, an absolute morning show, big media, mainstream media brand. And we're talking and making it humorous about cannabis. And it's just like, my God, can we legalize this already? That was my takeaway. I don't know what you guys thought.
Yeah, I think it's kind of nails on chalkboard, to be completely honest. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Snoop. I love the stoner shtick. Everybody loves Uncle Snoop. He's a great guy. He does a lot of good in his private life. But I think that you can't really forget that there's people in jail for cannabis possession. Cannabis is still a Schedule I narcotic on the CSA. Like, it's great that it's on the Daily Show. It's great that obviously the social stigma has pivoted to such a degree that we can joke about it on a mass media TV station like that and make good light of it. But you don't see the heroin show being joked about on TV. You don't see the meth show being joked about on TV. Shit, they wouldn't even do it with guns. They could do it with cannabis, yet it's still a Class 3 felony in states like Florida. There's still people that are going to jail for simple possession. And I mean, they need to catch up with the times if we're going to really start to societally embrace it the way we are. There's things that need to be done very quickly if it's going to hit that sort of scale.
I honestly just look like in the media space, it's just like you got to like be family oriented when it comes to obviously a morning show. And
That's my point.
yeah, and
If
it's just like to me, it's just like this is crazy as to because this got serious in a hurry. It was humorous, obviously, what he's doing, but to your point, you're right. There's people locked up with minimal amounts of possession, which is insane. But this is
yeah,
a morning show program that's been around for 50 plus years. You bring on Snoop, they're making humorous, obviously, claims in terms about cannabis. It's just like what are we doing? Like everybody in America obviously doesn't really think too much or view cannabis in a bad light anymore. Enough already, Washington. Make the changes.
no, you just nailed it. If it's acceptable enough to have a skit in detail where everybody knows exactly what it is that they're talking about explicitly,
Right.
it is acceptable enough to take the damn thing off of Schedule 1, much let alone take it off the CSA and legalize it, because it obviously is not a harm and a big detractor to society as everybody thinks it is. If what Snoop did on the Today Show is that acceptable, and it obviously is that acceptable because they have a high degree of what they actually can put on the show, and the fact that that passes muster and that is acceptable enough to have that is a glowing endorsement to the fact that cannabis should be legalized, and it's time to just change the shit once and
Glop, do
for
you want
all.
to add anything?
I'll take it a step further. I think it's great, like you were saying about it's on the Today Show. Then it's a step forward in the right direction in terms of normalization. But I still feel like it's only okay if Snoop does it. It's like a caricature of stonerness that is been damaging to the reputation of all cannabis users for a long time. So, that's his shtick, that's his thing. I'm not going to take anything away from Snoop. I love him. I love what happened here, but at the same time, like I'm so tired of that stereotype.
That's a
Let's
good
get Snoop to dance around and do some rhymes and make some weed jokes, and he's so funny.
However, when they brought up the whole LA scene and
Yeah,
like representing Compton as the halftime show in the Rams Bengals Super Bowl, like that to me made it kind of classified as like, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like it was like it was legitimized, not to say it wasn't
yeah.
before, but it was like all genres viewing this in a totally different light and the stigma was shed. I think why not bring this guy in? Because if he's able to shed all these other stigmas about where he grew up, then bring this along with it as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, you make a very good point, but I mean, his music isn't stoner music. His music is gangster rap. Like if you can make that mainstream and make that applicable, cannabis is a breeze.
I know. Lots of great topics here today. Love the feedback that we're getting and continue to bring those comments in, people. This is TDR Trade to Black podcast. We talk about culture, we talk about business, we talk about trends that are happening overall in the space, as well as the political landscape in Washington as well. But as I said, in one of those, we talk about business, which now we're going to switch to our next, which is arguably the most well-known cannabis stock since day one, which is Canopy Growth. And they had some interesting news. Made actually an impressive one. They actually made a prepayment on senior secured term loan, which may have caught, I think, some people by surprise, Anthony, because this isn't due for a little bit further on down the road, but they made a prepayment. It's happened before in the space, but it's not common for people to do that. But how'd you view this? And more importantly, why do they do it now? And what was the amount that they paid?
The why, I'm not too sure. We're gonna have David Klein on next week to
Okay.
go over the why and strategically how this made sense at this point in time. They paid off $100 million in debt. It's going to alleviate a $14 million and $14 million a year debt service cost on an annualized basis. It brings their total debt down to around, I think, 400, and it's like 400 million and change. So greatly reduced their debt by around 20%. And this is just
Impressive.
it's a great move overall. I mean, shoring up the balance sheet, the prepayment for this tranche pushes out the maturity of the remainder of the debt facility. I think to 2026 at some point in time. I mean, this is great to see. But like I said, it's going to be nice to have David on next week to talk about the why behind this and the strategy on a go forward basis financially for Canopy.
Yep. We will be doing that interview midweek next week. We're going to post that out a week next Thursday, actually. So if there's any questions that you guys want, if there's any Canopy Growth shareholders, leave some comments again below. Let us know your feedback, anything you want us to reach out and ask David. By all means, here's your chance. So stay connected. Ben Lubin writes, NBC is prepping Snoop Dogg for the 2028 LA Olympic Games. Absolutely. That's going to be quite the scene. It's the Summer Games. That's in 2028. And good little preview as to what we're going to see in 4 years with what he did, obviously, this past year in Paris. I thought him and Martha was involved in that quite a bit too, but they were actually incredible during the Olympics this past year. But lots going on, to say the least, with him. And anyway, Guap, did you want to add anything with regards to comments with regards to Canopy? Don't? Okay. Mohammed Shaheen, Dodgers, told you guys. Yeah, they're winning.
Yeah, and Irish Avenger brings up a pretty good point. They got a 2.5% discount with the prepayment. So the 100 million principal, they paid 97.5 out of pocket for. So a little bit of savings.
December 2026, Irish Avenger just outlined. Okay, this is great.
Yeah, that's where the maturity got pushed out to.
Yep. All right, just checking some more comments here. Let's keep it on the topic of different Canadian LPs. Let's now talk about SNDL, which a lot of reviewers will like, knowing the amount of people that watch this that are always commenting about SNDL every single live stream that we post. So good news, it involves them and Canadian company Nova Cannabis and their shareholders, where they approved the proposed plan of arrangement with SNDL, meaning they've approved the sale to SNDL. In the agreement, it includes that SNDL will acquire all the Nova shares in exchange for either $1.75 in cash or 0.58 of an SNDL share, a total of 53,807,109 Nova shares. So this just further expands, obviously, SNDL's footprint across the Canadian market. We've been to a few of these value bud locations across Canada, in Vancouver and in Toronto. Anthony, I don't have the numbers in front of me as far as the amount of dispensaries across the country, but it's a pretty wide range footprint, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, they got the marriage done. This consummates the marriage, and now they totally acquired Nova with this. From my understanding, the numbers, though, are already baked in, as they were reporting Nova numbers as of a couple of quarters back, as they'd already had a 2/3 majority in the business. They were just waiting to acquire the rest of the outstanding shares. But now this is just another step in the right direction for SNDL, and solidifying their retail footprint. Now I think it's a 2-man race or a 2-horse race between SNDL and High Tide for who has the let's say most efficient and highest performing retail footprints in Canada.
You think you'll see some changes there on how it'll just stay as is? Yeah.
Who's gonna? I mean, I don't think that there's going to be a large enough company that's going to want to come in and compete. And I mean, they've already consolidated and gobbled up strategic assets. There's no one that's going to dethrone SNDL or High Tide from a retail perspective in Canada.
What I meant was, like, do you think Zach is going to come in and tweak some of the branding associated with Value Buds, or keep as is? Like
branding, no, but he said he's going to strip out human capital to create cost efficiencies.
Yeah,
streamline business, streamline operations to reduce costs, which he did with the Valens acquisition, and I mean, it's kind of what he's known for as far as integrating these acquisitions into their overall business. So yeah, I mean, at that point, there's probably going to be some radical fundamental changes to Nova from a corporate standpoint, which will be good for SNDL because they'll be capturing the revenue, creating the efficiencies, and then lowering costs. So they'll expand margin to a certain degree.
Glop, I know you're a High Tide shareholder, so without being biased when looking at this, you know, how do you view the competition landscape between the two retail giants in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a McDonald's and a Burger King. You know, it's not for their sake. You know, it's good to have two. You know, no monopolies here. You know, two big company heavyweights battling it out. And as we'll touch on here, you know, in a minute, the 6th anniversary for Canadians legalization just came yesterday, and you know, you saw a lot of 5-year leases as soon as legalization kicked off. So you're starting to see there was definitely a huge push to have a ton of locations everywhere, and everything got a lot of very oversaturated. But once those leases started coming due and they realized, okay, there's Sundial, there's High Tide, what chance do I have? A lot of these individual dispensaries started not renewing their leases or selling to the big boys, closing doors. So we're starting to see that sort of contraction now, as these two heavyweights battle it out.
Yep. Well, as we said in the early days of this cannabis space, regardless of what market you're in, when you look at the automotive industry, at the end of the day, there was, in the American landscape, there was 3 companies, GM, Ford, and Chrysler. And I think there was 50 different automotive companies well over 100 years ago that launched. But over time, you're getting to see that High Tide, which trades in the NASDAQ under HITI, is a major retail player in the Canadian market with their Canna Cabana brand, as well as now SNDL with this acquisition, confirming with Nova Cannabis and Value Buds. I was actually looking online right now. Man, there's a lot of dispensaries in Toronto, like a lot. I was checking out one address, and you've got 500 Bloor Street West is a Value Buds, and then just down the street at 1287 Bloor Street West is a Value Buds. There's a lot of them, that's for sure, which we saw a couple months ago, Anthony. But all in all, major footprint. Let's now move to one last thing I wanted to highlight. Do you guys know what yesterday was?
It was just Canadian legalization. Canadian legalization.
Ding. 6 years ago. 6 years. Where does time go? You guys remember it all? Like, that was a big day, I think, even though, if Americans, but that was a big day at G7 country like Canada. Legalize federally cannabis. Do you guys remember what you were doing that day and what that day was kind of like for you?
I was selling my Canadian cannabis stocks.
I think a lot of people.
Yeah, I was gonna say it marked the I don't know if it marked the top. I think 2 weeks before legalization marked the top, and then the 3 months following was just down and to the left, or down and to the right.
When Canopy got the $5 billion check from Constellation, was that the summer of 2019, or was that a couple months before federal legalization? Do we know? Because that was a turning point.
Constellation was before legalization, I'm pretty sure.
Was it? Maybe check that out. But your point, once Canada went federal legalization, everything changed. That was the turning point. And it's been a downtrend ever since. But those were some glory days back in 2016 and 17, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2017 Constellation invested.
That was the 250 million.
And then 2018 they announced a subsequent investment. It doesn't say when, but I would have to assume it was before legalization.
Guap, you remember that day?
I don't. No, I wasn't paying attention to the cannabis space at all when it came to Canadian legalization. I started really tuning in 2019. But yeah, we ran a poll a couple times actually before and after Kamala echoed her full legalization comments, and our audience is just not convinced that it takes an act. It can't, presidents are not the king. It takes an act of Congress to fully legalize, most likely. So, our audience, I think it was about 25-75 in terms of 75% said that we will not see full legalization in the United States during Kamala's first term if she gets elected. So I don't know if that's I just don't know how not wanting it to be true. Kamala's not going to do anything because they're voting for Trump or whatever. But it also reflects just how a pre-election pledge on cannabis is not a promise. We've learned that, and it takes more than just the president saying something to get something like that done. That's a big step.
If she is elected, do we see safe banking in her first term? I know.
Yeah, it's like,
guys love that.
I mean, yeah, we did the whole DC trip.
If I walk out my house after the show, am I going to get hit by a bus? Probably have the same odds of safe banking happening.
I don't know about that, but
I think that's a stretch. I think if she's
Yeah.
elected president, like it's a fair question to ask.
But her being
So,
president is no her being
can you?
president has
Right.
no bearing on safe banking. It's legislative.
I understand, but you don't
If she's
think there's any
president
kind of
and there's a blue if
there's
she's
gotta
president and there's a blue wave
if everything
throughout
is
the
so black
legislative
and
branches of government.
if everything is so black and white like that, I would get, but that's not how Washington works. It's a lot of schmoozing, you know, this stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Like I get it.
You've seen
Yeah.
it though. You think that there's going to become. You think you're going to get more GOP senators to vote for SAFE under a Harris administration than under a Trump administration. I can tell you with certainty on what I've seen. This is obviously anecdotal, but you got a better chance of SAFE passing and GOP senators getting whipped into shape with Trump in the White House than you do with Kamala. That's just logic.
Mm-hmm.
It's who do you want to give the win to? Kind of.
Yeah.
Calculus. Yeah.
GOP senators aren't going to budge on anything cannabis related. Oh, Gretchen says I'm dead wrong. So come on, Gretchen. Come on the show and let me know
We'll
I'm
get
dead
Gretchen
wrong.
on soon. That was fun.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear it, Gretchen. I'd love to hear this. It's somebody email her.
GOP senators giving Kamala the win.
Yeah. Well, we'll wait for that. Type your comment right now. Maybe we should send her the podcast link and have her hop on real quick.
We're gonna pass it on January 14th. No, I'm just making a joke. I don't know.
Mohammed Shaheen, I know you're a Dodgers fan, but that was probably the best baseball game I've ever watched in my life last night between the Yankees and Guardians in Game 3. That was a game for the ages. If anyone didn't get a chance, if you're a baseball fan, that was incredible on how that game finished. Ben Lubin writes, how did High Tide get on the NASDAQ? Well, they're a Canadian company. That's why.
Yeah.
Still waiting. Waiting.
Gretchen's logic makes sense. The Senate goes Republican. Daines is going to be the next leader. And obviously Daines is the champion for safe banking.
Sign me up.
But Gretchen's logic here has nothing to do with whoever's in the White House, which was the original pretenses of the comment. So she's absolutely right if in that scenario. But that scenario has nothing to do with Kamala or Donald being in the White House. So she does make complete sense.
Very good point. That would be incredible. Senator Steve Daines being at the forefront, that would be incredible, wouldn't it?
That's what we need. In that scenario, she's 100% correct. Steve Daines gets control of the Senate. Yes. That'll be more influential than Donald Trump saying anything as far as safe banking goes.
Yeah.
So she's absolutely correct in that assumption.
Just incredible group of guys out there in Montana. Daines, Tester. We got a chance to meet all those guys.
I think Tester's about to lose his seat.
Is he?
Yeah.
All right. You know what? It's 43-minute mark, and I can kind of delay things towards the end. Do you have mic drop this week, Guap?
I do. Yeah, I've got a little rhyme for everyone. I wrote this back in May of 2022, so that's how long at least I've been thinking about these effects-based formulations. So it was a bit of a prediction. I'll just launch into it. It's 2042 in my hempcrete house. Effects-driven product is what I'm here to espouse. So how do you want to feel, my beautiful spouse? It's hike o'clock, so let's take this energy. Climb to the top to see what we can see. The sun sets, so time for the rest. Glad the package just lists the effects. Do you know your cannabinoids? The masses will get annoyed and avoid. The terpene profile is listed, so figure it out. The masses will wonder, what the fuck is this about? If you want to reach her, scream it from the bleachers. You're the reefer teacher, so benefits, not features. So that was my roundabout guap way of saying, I want to see more product formulations that just say energy or rest on it and have the minor cannabinoids listed. And I think people will buy into that sort of thing. I don't think we have to wait until 2042. It's happening right now. So I'm here for it. I love this.
Got a marketing background, buddy?
A little bit. It's just, benefits, not features. All the talk, it drove me crazy when I was sort of getting into the cannabis space more and more, and people were just talking about, the bun tenders just need to be more educated, or because they're the ones doing all the recommending. True to some extent, or people should just know what the minor cannabinoids do, meaning the consumer, or people should just know what the 250 terpenes do.
Yeah.
That's never the case. You always want to make it as easy as possible for someone who's brand new to the product to know what it's gonna do.
So are we trying to, like, when it comes to branding right now, we're trying to do too much to that therefore converts into complicating things?
Yeah, it was just more sort of like the heady stoner knowledge of spending hours and years of your life really understanding this product and what it does. And versus consumer packaged goods for a product that has a lot of complex effects. The way to do it is not to just educate bud tenders or expect consumers to educate themselves. It's to
simplify things.
Yeah, brand, use the right colors, have a purple and a blue on your sleep products.
If you get somebody that's coming into a store and they don't know where to begin, but obviously with some sort of like messaging that's pretty simple, I'm sure that's where the conversation could ask, which then converts into an actual sale. But I
buy something called Snoozeberries, which has a bunch of blue and purples on it, and it's pretty obvious just from the product name. It's got CBN in it, and it's going to help me sleep. Don't expect the consumer to know what CBN is.
No.
Expect them to want to sleep.
That's why I ask questions like I do right now, because as we're starting to get more and more of a new audience in, it's just like stuff that you guys know and a lot of our viewers here know too. When I have conversations with people outside of this space, they are deer in headlights. So we got to have a balance between the two.
I do agree with you guys there, but at the same time, if you look at the mainstream effects-based gummies business, they do sell by the effects, but people are very in tune with the actual additive that's enabling that effect, whether it's ashwagandha, apple cider vinegar, melatonin. People do look to what the actual additive is, or the compound that's eliciting the effect.
But is this more or less just trying to grab someone's attention when you have a product on the shelf and then those questions and things come into play? Like that?
Oh yeah, it's like they have them. It's like Ollie. You look at the package; it says Ollie sleep gummies.
Yeah.
With melatonin or whatever it says.
Ashton Hodge, good episode, guys. Thank you so much. There's another one. Adam M writes, can you guys do a show with Simon and MindMed CEO? We've actually reached out to Dr. Robert Barrow a number of times. They don't get back to us. I've reached out to Doug Drysdale recently. We'll look into that. How is Bright Minds Bioscience moving again today?
It's up 160%.
Did they get halted this morning?
It got halted when we just started the show. It's back trading now.
Jesus. Something fishy up there, that's for sure. But
not now. Now it's just maybe whatever they have. So I did some more research. There was a company that had a drug acquired earlier in the week that was analogous to whatever they're doing research on. But at the same time, just the chain of events, the way that this happened, it just looks sketchy.
Yeah.
Like it was a short squeeze. Someone knew something. They put out a press release that says no material change. Then they put out a press release that they had results that were positive in regards to this pain medication. Then 2 days later, they put out a press release saying we just did a $35 million raise at a price that was drastically below market. And then the stock goes up 150% following that.
What was the average? What was the average?
$22 was the financing with a full warrant.
What was the average daily trading volume prior to all this stuff happening?
I have no idea.
Like it was like what, an $11 million market cap company. Now what's the value?
It was a company on the brink. It was a company on the brink of going insolvent, from what I could understand. They're about to run out of money at an $11 million market cap.
Wild. I'm just looking
now,
at the chart right now.
If you invested at the lows, you're up 55x on your money right now.
Ooh. We heard some great things about MindMed and some of the background with their chief medical officer and her rich history with the FDA. And looking at the stock right now, it's actually down 27% over the past 6 months. MindMed. But it's a company, I think, from a pure research standpoint, they have really turned that boat around in a hurry from the original days of J.R. Ron and a few others. But that was the early days of the psychedelic space. It's that 3-4 years ago now. All right, gents, I don't want to keep elaborating, but extending this. We'll finish things now. But coming up on Monday, we're going to have former NFL running back Ricky Williams to come on and talk about legalization of cannabis, why he thinks it needs to happen, some of the athletes from his network of people, some of the conversations he's having. He's going to share some of the stories and how it's changed their life. But more importantly, will we see more athletes, including Ricky, in Washington talking about legalizing cannabis? Because let's face it, when we were there back in April, the three of us, the attention that both him and Jim McMahon got was strong and encouraging. And then we'll keep the banger week going because on Wednesday, Senator Joe Gruters from Florida is going to be joining us to talk about none other than Amendment 3. When that live stream goes down, it'll be less than 2 weeks before the U.S. federal election, which I can't believe. Coming on.
No, Christopher Brady, Dan the Chart Man, is possibly still without internet and power. So that's why you haven't seen him on our show in the last couple of weeks.
I saw him chainsawing and splitting wood, and because a lot of trees came down on his property, and I think he just got a Starlink Mini, if I'm not mistaken.
He did.
Yeah,
I think he got Starlink on like Wednesday. But yeah, he's been off the grid. Hope he's doing well.
Jungle Java, always like the most reliable person in the space right now, announced August 15th, 2018, closed on November 1st. That was the announcement, with Constellation given the $5 billion to Canopy Growth. So yeah, that was 2 months before actual federal legalization. I see a smirk on your face.
We got real-time fact checking. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you wanted to say something, Anthony.
War
Dog, I will say I was at that game between the Jays and Texas Rangers. That was, I think the 7th inning lasted over an hour of that game, but it was pretty intense. I still can't believe the Jays won that game. All right, guys, listen. Make sure QR code is below. Click right there, right there. Click on that QR code. Baked In newsletter. It's grown over 35% now. I don't know what's going on, but we have got a. What are you saying? Is it more?
Scan the QR code. You don't click QR codes. Scan the QR code.
Apologies. Thanks, Mr. Millennial. But I sound a little old there, to say the least.
We got to guide them to leverage the technology the right way.
Yeah.
There's no clicking.
What are we up? Are we up over 30% in the last 2-3 weeks?
The newsletter audience is up around 50% and change as of this morning in the last 3.5 weeks.
Wow. So why? Lots of stuff that we're doing around the election and what it means, who's the likely candidate to win or not win, what it means if this person is elected, all that important information. So if you haven't done so already, make sure to scan that QR code and become a Baked In newsletter. In the meantime, for Anthony Varel and Guap, I'm Shad Dell saying enjoy your weekend. We'll see you back here Monday.
See you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
I'm off to High Point.
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for watching. Where does time go? We're already at Q4 2024 as we get ready for a big federal election here in the U.S. What's going to happen? Who's going to win? And what kind of impact will it have on the cannabis industry? We'd love to get your feedback. If there's any guests that we've missed, leave some comments below. As usual, make sure to smash that like button and click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information that we share here on the TDR Trade to Black podcast. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to our channel because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everybody, for watching.